G'day everyone, popping in for our usual Friday chat. Can't wait to have a chat with you all today. Happy Thanksgiving to, I think it's called Happy Thanksgiving, is it, to all our American viewers? Obviously we don't have that holiday down here, but I hope you've all had a wonderful day. Let us know in the chat what you've been up to and things like that. So, like I said, we don't have that holiday here in Australia. So anyway, I hope you've had a great day. Going to give it a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes. This is all pre-show. Let me just bring this up so we know. So basically we can just have a chat and say who's in the live chat. So say hi if you actually are. We've had Jamie saying hi all there at this stage. I'm just going to put in there, hi everyone. If you are popping in a little bit later, or if you don't want to watch the pre-show, I will put a timeline down there for you as well, so you can skip to which story you might be interested in. So that's what we'll be going there. So let me see who's in here. Marcus is saying I'm back. MSX Box Pro says hi. Wayne says happy Turkey Day everyone. So you all eat turkey, do you? Is that what the Thanksgiving is? All feast on a big turkey? We have turkey here, but really only at Christmas time. We do have chicken and turkey for Christmas Day. That's about the only time we ever have turkey here, actually. Daniel saying hi. Is it Kutiba? Kutiba is saying hi as well. Haz is saying hi, folks. Dre's saying hi. Marco is also saying hi. I want the a7000 to outperform the Blackmagic 4K one. AG, I'm going to talk about that shortly. AG says, you guys need to adapt this holiday just for the reason to eat too much. Sue says, hi. Hi, Sue, how are you? Torben says, early morning from Denmark. Chris is saying, hello, David, Coroni coffee. Yes, look, I have got my malty coffee, or dark coffee, I should say. It's nice. I've already opened it. Corona time in Los Angeles, it certainly would be. Raymond says hi from East Coast USA. Koza said hello from PA USA. So we've got a stack now starting to come in. I've got another wedding to do tomorrow. I'm doing a fusion wedding tomorrow down the coast here, which I'm really looking forward to. I've got a team coming down with me, a couple of extra people helping, which is going to be fun. I can't wait to do that tomorrow. Oreo's also here as well. G'day, Oreo. Good to see you in the live show as well. Yes, I haven't done a fusion for a couple of weddings, actually, so I'm looking forward to it. It just means an awful lot of more gear. That's why I'm taking an extra person to help lug the stuff around that I actually need. I'm going to be using the gimbal tomorrow for the first time, the Aircross, the Moza Air2, I should say. I'm going to use that in tomorrow's wedding, which is going to be different than just using my normal Aircross. It's going to be interesting to see how I handle the weight, because it is a much more, well, way bigger, I'm burping on that coffee. It's a way bigger gimbal. So it's going to be interesting to see how I go holding that and also holding the other camera in the other hand. So I'm going to give it a go. But I've got to take it back on Monday, so I really want to try and get some other footage with using it. I'm quite confident now because I've used it quite a lot during the week, so it's not like I'm going to a wedding and not knowing the gear. I've used it all week before the wedding. I have posted a video about that gimbal the other day, so have a look at that video and let me know what you think. It was amazing, actually. It's only the weight is the downside. It is quite heavy, so it's probably not for me to use. I'd probably prefer to use something like the Aircross because it's much lighter. But anyway, let me know what you think if you've watched that video. But it is beautiful and stable. And if you were, say, planning on using Sony glass, like the G Master glass lenses, apart from the 24, like if you're using a 24-70 or something like that, or even the 35 1.4, you may need a bigger gimbal like that as well. So who else have we got? We've got Chris is saying coffee time in LA. Yeah, I did that before. Raymond says hi from the USA. Costa said hello from PA USA. Matt says happy tea day from Portland. Haas says I will buy that new camera right away if it has a larger Z battery and dual card. I can sacrifice the flip screen for those features. What else have we got? Oreo was just saying hi. Jason said hello from New York City. Love your show. Thank you so much, Jason. D. Harlow says hi all. Sheng says hi. Gary says hello everyone. Jason says Sony, Canon. David also says hello all. How are we going for time? So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. I'll have another sip of my coffee. It's coffee that you've got to open up with this. I love it. You just got to play the games, unfortunately. AJ said thumbs up for you. Thank you so much, AJ. How's I mean? Carl says early tonight. My alarm was set for 9:25 p.m. A little bit early. Yeah, I'm still getting everything ready for tomorrow's wedding. AJ says I had a good conversation with Michael Maven about his new video about 5 hacks to a 1 card slot camera and how it can be used for pro work. Have you seen the video? No, I haven't, AJ. I just don't want to have any hacks or anything like that. I just want a camera to have dual card slots. I'm going to talk about that shortly. Rob said, hi from the UK, up late watching the T20 Women's World Cup. Cool. Peter said, glad I made the last 2 minutes. Well, we've only just started, Peter, so what do you mean? We're only just starting for the day. I am wearing my Type A personality t-shirt today, as it is the news show. So basically, if you hate Sony, my suggestion to you is, before I start getting all the thumbs down and the trolls, switch off now. Because remember, this one is the Sony News and Rumours show. So this show is very Sony based. So if you're not interested in that part of it, you might be better off to switch off. I get people coming in putting these comments down, and I say, but I told you not to watch. But they can't help it. It just cracks me up. Who else have we got? Richard saying, hi, David. Oreo says, I'm editing restaurant interior images. Cool, Oreo. Sue just said, laugh out loud. I need another drink. I might even top it up a little bit. So, we've got an interesting show today. There's not many stories. I think I've only put down 3 stories. That's about all. Before we go over to the actual full-on show, I just wanted to bring this up. Make sure you are following me here, guys, because this page, it's the photography. If you're going to add this, it is photography and videography school. And the and has to be like that, not and, otherwise you won't find it. This week's winner was a great image. You can see here what a great image I chose this week. It was actually, had to be, I think it was Overpower the Sun was last week's image, and this was the one that I chose to win and be the header of the actual group. Again, there's stacks of stuff on there. I did post that I was going to be on live on YouTube. Also, I obviously got my wedding video up there, but then the stacks of stuff. Aaron has just posted a video why he shoots RAW and not JPEG as well. But we've got stacks. People are sharing videos. Graduated college this year, studied film. And this site is really unusual, guys, because this site is basically for anyone that's involved in stills and video that wants to do what I do and start to do fusion. Like, it's actually for everyone. There's not many sites out there where it is videography and photography and fusion all sort of built into one site. Very positive. If I see anyone come in here and start to be, you know, the usual, I'm up myself, I'm going to slam them and they're going to get immediately kicked out. I'm not going to take any of that sort of I'm better than you type people in this page. We're up to over, we've got nearly 3,200 people now, so it's growing very fast. We're adding well over 100 per week now. So, you know, join us on here, guys, because it's got some great stuff through here. Gerald's always posting stuff on there as well. People are often asking for critiques. As well as a review of the 28 to 75 on there that Oreo has shared. Also, Gerald's always sharing things where you can get cheap deals and things like that. Like I noticed the Sony has $40 off, $45 off that card at the moment. We've got things here saying fairly expensive 15mm modern lens versus cheap vintage lens. Which one is better? You can see that we've got stacks of stuff in here that, you know, would be interesting to really anyone getting into this sort of stuff. So please join us there, because it's definitely the place where I'd like you to, well, basically continue what we're doing on YouTube. So that's, yeah, please join us there. Also, add me on Instagram. I'm going to put it in there now. Let me just take off this pre-show so that clears it. Add me on Instagram. I want to make sure that if you do, I will add you back. If I miss you because I've got a lot of followers, message me and then I'll make sure I add you as well. So before we go over to the live show today, let me just read up these things, because I'm going to put start show in there a second. Costa said, just saying, a shoot for Sony. Diallo said, ever used a drone at your weddings, David? Yes, I do. For my Fusion ones, I use the Phantom Pro. And they'll be using that tomorrow. I've got Gino coming though. So Gino is a professional drone videographer, so he may do the drone stuff for me tomorrow. Any news on the Tamron 100 to 400? Not yet. Yes, Delta Dave, it is the ampersand. Yep, you've got to make sure you put that in there. Mick says we can't see the and the Facebook page. Oh. It's just up there. So you've got to hang on. Let me just see if I can. The videography is that way, so it's photography and videography school like that. So it's got to be written that way. If you don't write it that way, you won't be able to see it. And like I said, you know, there's stacks of stuff on there with people sharing videos, why I shoot RAW and JPEG and stuff like that. So please join us on there, guys. It's just such a fantastic site now. Like I said, there's over 3,100 or 3,200 like-minded people on there now. What else have we got? Roy said, hi David, enjoying the rain? Yes, I was, Roy. We had so much rain yesterday. It was incredible. Haas said, how come the behind the scenes don't have enough exposure? Are you talking about my wedding ones? I'm not sure, Haas. And I really am amazed that they don't do better than what they actually are, really. I'm hoping over time they do get much better views, because there's a lot of work going into those views that I'm putting on. They take a good whole day. That's 8 hours of editing for me to get those up and online, and they're only getting, you know, 500 views, 600 views, and it's almost not worth doing. But like I said to you, this for me is about doing stuff for you guys, so it's not just about views, and that's why I'm going to keep posting them, because I want to give something back to you, and you never know, over a period of time they may add more and more views as, you know, time goes on, because if anyone's searching for wedding photography behind the scenes, they'll find them there. So it's not just about the views, even though I would like to obviously get more views for those. It's still about me giving something back to you guys. Haas, I know I wrote that. James said, David, have I missed anything? No, not yet, James. We're just starting. Hero said, greetings, Lord Oastler. All in the chat, bow at your feet. I don't think you need to do that, Hero. The part-time photographer says, evening, everyone from Los Angeles. I, for one, appreciate the wedding videos. Thanks so much, mate. Hart says, I was also surprised why they don't have much views, as it takes a lot of work to put out. Yes, they do. But like I said, I do want to give something back to you guys, so that's why I'm going to keep doing that sort of stuff. And I don't just want to be a reviewer of hardware, of hardware reviews and all that sort of stuff. I do still want to show live shoots and all that sort of stuff, because it's what I love to do. And I do think it gives me some credibility about what I show, because I'm actually showing that I am working. So that part of it as well is important to me. But hopefully they'll grow in views over time. Rob said, hi David, do you use the A9 to record your video and stills on weddings? Yes, I do. I use both the A9 and the a7 III. My A9 is usually my #1 camera, and my a7 III is obviously my second camera. But due to me doing Fusion tomorrow, I'll be doing the A9 will be my video camera, because that's the one I'm going to be putting on the gimbal, because I trust the autofocus and I love the look of video, particularly from the A9. So I'll be using the A9 mostly for video tomorrow, and I'll obviously be using that to back up onto both cards at the same time. And then I'll use my a7 III and the a7R2 as my still cameras, and I'll probably do a little bit of video with the a7R2 as well. What about the Sony a7 III Mark IV? Well, I don't think we'll be getting that for quite a while yet. Three Trees said, picked up the a7 III for $1,500. Wow, that's a good price, Three Trees. Fantastic. Part-time photographer said, which one normally rides on the gimbal? Well, it depends. I vary all the time. Tomorrow I'm going to use the A9 on the gimbal though, because like I said, I do prefer the video out of the A9 over the a7 III, and because I'm being paid to do this as Fusion, I'm going to use the A9 on the gimbal. I trust the focus mostly on that A9. Also, there's less rolling shutter on that camera as well. So tomorrow, due to it being a paid shoot, I'll be using the A9 for the video. Delta Dave said, behind the scenes gear videos. Yep. Michael says, apparently Sony have put out some other listing of new camera. I'm going to talk about that shortly. Stacey said, finally made a live broadcast. Cool beans. Good to see you here, Stacey. Photomiac's in here as well. G'day, Photomiac. The Panda Photographer's also saying hi as well. The part-time said, jealous Three Trees Photography. That's because he bought that camera for so cheap. And Barry's saying hi. All right, I'm just going to put in here start show. All right, so let me go over to the logo and then we're going to start the show, guys. G'day everyone, I'm just filling up my coffee. As you guys know, I'm drinking coffee, but I'm filling it up now. Obviously we just had a pre-show, we're starting the show. I'm just going to pop over to that for a second, just so we can see here. I've actually put the start on the show. I'm going to, after each story, stop and we'll go through all these sort of stories and answer questions as the stories go. And at the end of it, I'll leave enough time to answer some questions for you as well. We'll have a Q&A. If you do want to make sure you get my attention, put that at David Oastler, because it will get my attention and it'll make sure I don't miss something. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to see something as well, if you can see it that way. I only got 3 stories today, so it'll be interesting, but I think they're really 3 interesting stories, so it'll be great. Tomorrow I've got another wedding. I'm doing a Fusion wedding, which I've just been preparing actually in my studio just behind me back there. I've got all the gear ready to go. Fusion does take an awful lot of more gear because I've actually got way more audio stuff that's got to go in. Let me see if I can attach this, because I'll show you what I've got in my gear bag. I think I can add this in. Let me see if it's going to work. Bear with me. I'll see if I can get it to sink in and I'll show you. Because I think I can do a live with my phone. I've just got to open up Wirecast. Now let me see if I can add a mobile phone. iOS, add. Now what do we do? I've got to see how this works. I'm hoping that I can get this on, because I have done it before. If not, I'll come back on after this and just show you a live tour. That's done something weird, actually. I don't think it likes it. Let me just delete this again. Delete shot. Oh, hang on. Not there. Cancel. I've got to do it here. Video capture. I think I'll go network. iOS, add. Well, that didn't work. I think if it works, I can see it straight away. You know what I'm going to do, guys? I'm actually going to, let me just delete this. I'm actually going to do it straight afterwards. I'll see if I can get it up and I'll come back on live straight after. I'll do it and try and get it connected. So as soon as the live show's finished, I'll see if I can come live and I'll take you through and show you everything I've got in my bags. All right, so I'm just checking. Yeah, it's a glitch coming up. Hopefully it'll come back up in a second. I'm hoping. It should. Let me just check. Yeah, there we go. It's back up. So as soon as this is finished, I'll log back on in a minute. Once I get my iPhone up, I'll work out how to do it, and I'll take you in the studio and show you. All right, so let's go basically to the first story, guys, because I'm interested to show you what's going on. Let me just bring this up. First story we're going to actually look at today is Sony have registered a new camera. So they've registered well, they're basically saying on here that well, they're not saying it, that with the registration, you don't really know what it is, but Sony Alpha have said an SR5 that's going to be the a7000 coming. They're basically saying down here, at last, folks, today Sony registered a new camera code in Asia. According to this Nakashima, the code is this WW71 whatever, is for a mirrorless system camera. We know from our sources that the high-end APS-C camera is the next camera that will be announced by Sony. So I bet this is the new a7000 or the a6700, whatever they're going to actually call it. And like they're still saying here that they're hoping that it might be announced before Christmas, because they said the last time this announcement came, it was actually announced the day after. So it came out fairly quick afterwards. And they're still saying that this is not an a6500 successor, that it's going to be a new type of camera. It has a new design with the EVF in the center we've all seen before. It's a new high-end APS-C camera, the Mini A9, probably 20 frames per second, and the 5.6 million dots EVF. So a couple of interesting things that I haven't seen before is they're saying there that this a7000 is going to have the new EVF. I thought they may have just kept that EVF for the a7S III. But looking at that, it looks like that's been rumoured to join with the a7000 camera. So that's really interesting in itself. But there is, for the first time, some movement that we've actually seen, because we were waiting for Sony to release this, because this has to happen before the camera actually gets announced. And I mean, that doesn't mean it's probably already developed, but they have to do this legally, some reason that these codes have to come out before they can release the camera. So it looks like we're going to get it fairly soon. Now, we're still hoping that it comes out before Christmas. I'm still a little bit surprised that there's no real sales on the a6500 though. So that's one interesting point to this, that we haven't really had any sales on that for Black Friday. Just like there's no sales for the a7 III, really. I haven't seen really anything in that. It's only the A9, which has had an amazing sale. The link for that's down below. You can save $1,000 on that. Or you can also save money if you want to buy the a7 III. I think there's $400 off that, a7R3. There's $400 off that, and I think there's also a few $100s off the a7R2 as well. So this is interesting, and like I've said, I do think the a7000 is going to come out before the a7S III, and it could be dropped basically any time now, but it is getting pretty close to Christmas, so you would think that if they want to do it, and hopefully have it in people's hands before Christmas, it's going to have to be announced very, very soon, within the next week or so, you would think. Because there's always that leadway of waiting to get it, you know, like it might be 3 weeks or so, or 4 weeks. So, you know, hopefully it'll be announced this week, and then we can all get one before Christmas. I'm still deciding whether to go for the a7000 or the a7S III. If the a7000 has everything I need, I might just jump in and get that. And then I can always get the a7S III when it's announced later on next year, probably in the first quarter of next year. I'm going to talk about the a7S III soon. But if the a7000 has the same body like the a7 series, so if we're talking, I've got them in the other room actually. So if we're talking about that it's got that same body, it's got the Z battery, the same, I'm hoping that it has dual card slots. See, it just depends on what they hold back on the a7000 will make me think, well, then I'll wait for the a7S version. So if they sort of give me everything I want, and I'll tell you what I want, and then I would probably just jump straight in. If they gave me dual card slots, if they gave me 4K 60p on that camera. And I would like, I know a lot of you don't want a bigger body, but you can still get the a6500 if you don't want that larger body. But if they gave me the better focusing like the a7 III has or the a9 has, and obviously that 20 frames per second is good, but I really want this for, personally, I want this for a video camera because I need another video camera. I need to replace my a7R2 that I use for video. So I need another one to replace that. Like when I'm doing the Fusion tomorrow, I start to struggle because I haven't got enough gear. I've got the a7 III, the a9, the a6500 and the a6300, but I need another good video camera, and I'd love one that does 4K 60p. I'm not so fussed about, I would love it to have an articulating screen, I really would, but I don't think we're going to get it. More important for me is to have the dual card slots and also to have the 4K 60p. I've explained to you that the dual card slots is critical for me. I will never buy another camera and use it professionally that only has one card slot in it. And I've mentioned to you recently the reason for that is that I don't want to have a camera that could potentially corrupt a card while I shoot. And I'm so paranoid about that when I do the wedding tomorrow, I'm going to use the a7R2 as my main camera to shoot the wedding because I'm going to be using a9 on a gimbal, and I'll have the a7 III to be capturing the still photography work. But as well as that, because I'm so paranoid about losing that image, say when I'm doing the ceremony, that's when I'll use my a7R2. I'll capture the ceremony with that. And what I'll do is I'll have another camera, so probably the a6500, I'll have another camera recording something very similar as a backup in case if there's a failure on the a7R2. Because the thing is, remember, I'm being paid all this money to grab this Fusion video, and if that fails, and I can't give them the first kiss or whatever that I'm videoing, or some major thing that happens during the ceremony, I can't give the bride what she's paid me to do. So I just can't take that risk. When I'm shooting with the A9, like tomorrow when I'm using the gimbal, when I've got the A9 on the gimbal, I'll be backing up in the cards. Even though I'm doing video, you can back up to both cards at the same time. So I will have a backup of the video on both cards working at the same time. Some people say you can't do that, but you can do that on Sony. So that's how I'll be working with the A9 tomorrow. But obviously the a7R2 that I'm going to be capturing the ceremony and also the speeches later on in the reception has only got one card. So I'm going to have to use two cameras to give me that redundancy. Remember, redundancy is everything, guys, for your clients. If it cannot be repeated, redundancy is so important. I will never, ever tell a bride that I've lost her images due to a corrupt card. And that's why I'm going to have double of everything tomorrow. It's like when I do audio tomorrow in the weddings, I'll have multiple redundancies of the audio. So not only will I be miking the groom up and also the priest, but I'll have a separate backup as well close to them in case if that doesn't work. I'll also have on-camera microphones in case if something goes wrong there as well. So you have to have multiple backups. So the thing I'm saying to you is the a7000, if it doesn't have dual cards, I may not buy it. If it gives me everything I need for a vlogger, I may buy it just to do vlogging. And then I'll potentially get an a7S III when it comes out, which I'm certain will have dual cards and 4K 60p. So that's probably what I'm thinking about doing at this stage. It's hard at this stage because I definitely need another video camera, but it's hard because both of these releases, the a7S III and the a7000, are going to be released fairly close to one another within probably a matter of 3 months. So, you know, I'm sort of deciding which way to go, and I'd love to know in the live chat if you're thinking like me, would you just jump in and get the a7000, or are you waiting to see what the a7S III has first before you make the decision? So let's have a chat about that, because I'd love to know what you guys think about that. Just while I have my coffee. Let's have a look. Rob said, what picture settings do you use in the A9? Rob, I do everything completely standard. So I'm the same with even the a7 III. I'm running NDs, variable NDs on the lenses. I nail the exposure. So what I basically do is I've got the settings that I use. I should do a video on it one time, but the settings I use is 100 on the zebras. So I just make sure that the zebras just barely disappear. I've got -2 settings on my EVF, and because that matches the exposure that I need. So I've got -2 on the EVF. I've got zebras at 100%, and I expose till just those zebras disappear. Critical exposure like the wedding dress, obviously, and things like that. I'll also check the exposure, obviously, through, and I'll use, I've gone blank. I use the histogram. Yeah, I went blank. I'll also use the histogram to make sure that I'm not clipping anything on the highlights. I like to tend to, if I have to, I'll underexpose just a touch, because with video particularly, you just haven't got the range of bringing out everything like you can with RAW, for instance, with your still. So you do have to nail the exposure. I could use, if I use the a7 III, I obviously could use the log profiles, but I like to keep the editing as simple as possible. And I really find that the standard picture profiles on the Sony cameras are just amazing. I know Craig from Wedding Film School now does the standard profiles. Scott, who has just taken over the Wedding Film School, also uses the standard profiles as well. So there's a lot of people using the standard profiles, and I'm finding as long as you nail your exposure, I can bring the shadows up a little bit. I just have to protect the highlights, and that's the thing that I will always be monitoring, that I don't blow the bride's dress. I'll be trying to monitor that all the time. So yeah, I don't mind not having picture profiles on the A9. Initially, I did want them to add them. Now it doesn't bother me at all because I'm just not using them. But I know a lot of videographers who want that massive dynamic range are using picture profiles, shooting log, but I'm finding I just don't need them. Have a look at the videos I always post, and they're always done on the standard profile, and I'm 100% happy with them, and everyone that's had a look at them loves them. The actual person, the company that lent me the Moza Air2 yesterday contacted me by email and said he loved the video that I produced. The images at the end were gorgeous, and he's going to send that to Moza. And this is all on the standard profile. Do not underestimate how good the A9 is on the standard profile as long as you nail exposure, Rob. What else have we got? Locke said, where in Australia do you live? I live in Melbourne, Lack. Is it Locke or? I'm from Sydney. Thanks for all your work. Thank you so much for following, mate. Reese says, hello all. Greetings from Ecuador. DP reviewed the EOS-R, gave it a low rating. I'm going to talk about that soon, Carl. I'm going to go through that review in a minute. Baz said, would you... I just want to change my glasses so I don't have to put my head up. Because these glasses, these are multifocal, so I have to look like that. So I'll put my reading glasses on. Oh, that's better. Baz said, you say you like your A9 best for video. Why? I have one and I'm pleased, apart from the highlight containment. Well, I don't have any problems with the highlight containment, Baz. Like I said, as long as you expose correctly, I can always bring the shadows up a little bit. Check out the videos that I've been posting, and I think they look gorgeous. I think the A9 is the best video. I can shoot full frame. It's the only camera on Sony, the only full frame camera that you can shoot full frame without any penalty loss at all. So I really do like that. There's less rolling shutter on there as well. So it's just a beautiful video camera. It really is. And I certainly don't have any problem holding highlights. Creative said, sup everyone. Three Trees said, your shutter speed looks a little slow on your live stream. Yeah, it might be. It's not. It could be. It's coming up saying the health is a bit low. I think it's actually that. It's not that, because I'm actually running at 1/50th of a second. It's probably just the internet connection, I'd say. Creative Film said glitches. Yeah. Three Tree said, I bought the a7 III for video. Now you are saying I need the A9. No, the A7 III is amazing, three trees. It still is amazing. Look, it's just that I find the A9 better. I use both, but I do find the A9 better, and I have said that all along if you go back from the other videos. They're both outstanding though. It's certainly, if you're talking about an overall camera of saying for stills and video, and you want lens, picture profiles and things like that, three trees, the A7 III is a better camera because the A9 doesn't have those picture profiles. So if you want to start to get into all of that sort of stuff, the A7 III is a little bit better than the A9 in that regard. I just find the A9 to be a little bit better with less rolling shutter. It's definitely better in full frame because the A7 III loses a little bit. If you're talking about video, you have to really shoot in Super 35 to get the best quality. The A9, you don't have to do that, but they're both amazing cameras. So don't think you've bought a bad camera. It's not bad at all. It's an amazing video camera. I'm just fortunate that I have both. That's all. If I only had the A7 III, I would be incredibly happy. In fact, if Sony don't release something soon, I might even buy another A7 III or an A9, I don't know, for video. Robert says hi from Alabama. Is it still glitching? I'm just curious to know. It doesn't look too bad up there when I'm looking at it. Switching from Nikon to Sony, and I do mostly architectural photography. Do you think the A7 III would be a good option for tight budget, or should I spend more to get more pixel? If you're doing architecture, I probably would be using the A7R III. Just for that ability to crop and things like that and to show detail. So I think if you're dealing down that line, you'd be better with the A7R III. Creative Film said A7 III has better detail than the A9. It also has a bit better dynamic range to the A7 III. I can't, you know what though, Creative Films, I really can't see it. And this is where sometimes pixel peepers will notice, but I can't tell the difference between the A9 and the A7 III. It might be a fraction, but it's never that I would worry about using one or the other. Pierre saying hi from California. Robert's also saying hi from Alabama. Where were we? Hero says, oh baby, 20 frames per second makes me get tingles in my britches. I love it. Chris says, sort of a weird spot for Sony to be. A7000 would need 4K 60 to combat the X-T3, but then what do they have as a hook for the A7S III? Well, they do, look, at the moment, Sony do have to combat that X-T3, because like I've said to you all before, the X-T3 is a better camera than the A6500. It really is much better than the A6500. It's got the newer sensor, obviously, that probably Sony's going to use in the A7000. You've got the 4K 60p on that. You've got better bit rates in that. The focusing is probably better. Even though the A6500 is great, I think the Fuji probably would be a fraction better. And it's just a much more modern camera. I mean, you think about the features that are in that, it definitely is better than what the A6500 is. So Sony do have to answer that. You still have got a difference though between Super 35 or the your crop mode and full frame. There is, and I don't really care what anyone has to say, I can tell a difference if you look between both. I'm not saying that crop is bad, so please don't give me, well, you're saying it's not. It's not. But there is a definite difference in low light ability. There's a definite difference in the way it looks. If you put a 1.4 lens on a full frame camera, it looks unbelievable. If you put an 85 Batis or an 85 1.4 on a full frame camera, it does have a certain look about it, and I adore that look. So I would still pay to go full frame for the look that full frame gives me. I'm not saying that crop is bad, because I've used my A6500 in shoots before and I'm quite happy with it, but it's still not what I would prefer to use. I still do love the look of full frame better. So you would still move up to get the A7S III. But if they offer too much, it may get a little bit close. But the problem is Sony just can't not answer the Fuji X-T3. They've got to answer that camera because they're going to lose sales. I think people are still going to buy the a7S III due to it's a full frame camera, and they'll buy the a7000 that probably will be priced about the same price as an X-T3. So I think that's probably what you're going to find. It's going to be about that $1,500 mark. People will still want to get a full frame camera though. What else have we got? The part-time photographer says, closes B&H link to save his wallet from the harm. That's quite funny. Has David, for me, it's a Z battery and the dual card. Yep, I'm the same. I would definitely want that Z battery and dual card slots. Julio said, made it. Good to see you here, Julio. Chris said, hard to imagine them not selling it as a mini A9 without dual cards. Well, you'd hope so, Chris. I hope that they've learnt enough with everything that's going on that they'll put dual cards in that. If it's the same body as an A7 III and they don't put dual cards in, I'll be disappointed, and I'll be telling Sony that I'm disappointed. James said, David, is that really coffee? Yes, James. It's malty coffee. It's sort of got a malt taste. It's interesting. I just can't say what I'm drinking because YouTube will stop me monetizing this video. I'm waiting to see what the a7S III brings to the table before jumping in, and there might be a lot of people that do that. Let us know too, and if you're watching this later, let me know in the comments box down below, guys, whether you're going to wait for what the a7S III has to bring first. Part-time photographer says that too. Waiting for the waiting to see what they bring out. I have an a7 III and the a7 II, which I want to upgrade. Yeah, stick with full frame. Creative Film said. Michael said definitely waiting on the a7S III. Full frame is the future. Carl said. Delta Dave says I've had more batteries fail on me than SDs. I'll never shoot with a camera without dual card slots and a battery grip. Yep, and I can totally understand that. I don't use battery grips. I've got one. I don't use it though because I like to be lightweight. I haven't ever had a Sony battery fail on me, but I always carry a battery in my pocket in case if that fails, or so I do always do that. And I never wait for the battery to completely drain. As soon as it's down to 10% left, I change it. Julian says, hi David, I was going to get the 85 1.8 for $600, or should I get the 28 to 75 Tamron instead? The 28 to 75. I have the a7 III and I do both video and photo. I own the 28 f2, which was my first lens. If you're doing video and stills, like you're saying, Julian, I'd get the Tamron, yes. I'd get that and I'd sell the 28 f2. I'd probably go that way, and then you could use that money that you sell the 28 f2 and potentially get something that's a wide angle lens to go wider than the 28. I'd probably go that way. On my A9 tomorrow that I'm doing the video, I'm going to have using the A9, and I'm going to use the 28 to 70 for the video tomorrow. So I'm not going to use that for stills tomorrow. I'm going to use the 28 to 70 Tamron for video. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to be able to have it on the gimbal. It's nice and light, but I also want to be able to do close-up detail shots and be able to or change the focal length very quickly. For when the bride walks down the aisle, for instance, I can go nice and wide, and then I can zoom in quickly and get one of her approaching her future husband. So I really do love the 28 to 70 on the for video. If you want to see what that lens looks like, have a look at the video I posted yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before for the gimbal. If you go to the footage at the end of that video, that was all with the Tamron, and it's beautiful. It just gives gorgeous video. Michael said, surely no matter how good the a7000 will be, the a7S will come out with better video specs. Look, there's no doubt. It will probably come out with higher frame rates. It probably, I think it'll have bit rates that are higher. I'd be surprised if they don't do that aspect of it. There might be a time limit The a7000 may only go for 5 minutes or something like that, whereas you should be able to get probably half an hour out of the a7S III. It's going to have much better specs, that's for sure, and it'll have much better low light than what the a7000 will be. So it certainly will be a different camera, but I'll talk about that in a few minutes, the new a7S III, I mean. Pierre says, I won't hold my breath for a dual card, would be nice. So yeah, I hope they do, Pierre. I really hope they don't just put one card in there. Haas said, yes, but the APS-C cam will cost half of it, probably. Yep, it will. I'm predicting it will be around $1,500. I can't see them charging the same as the a7S III. So I think it's going to have to be a few $100s under that. And I think they also have to compete with the Fuji 2, which is $1,500 if I remember right. I'm pretty sure that was $1,500 for the X-T3. So I do believe that the a7000 has to come in that ball range. They can't price it the same, or I don't think they'd price it the same as an a7 III. That'd be silly. But let's see. Pav said, hi David, I'm seriously thinking of buying the Sony a7 III, and that brings the question of what SD card, ND filter and stabilizer, not a gimbal, and stabilizer, not a gimbal, would you recommend for video mainly? Well, I'll just grab the camera and I'll show you. I can show you the A9 because it's the same in both cards. But basically the cards that I like are the Sony ones. And I noticed they're on special at the moment, these ones. So they're the cards that I do recommend using. Now I did notice, I'll see if I can get a link for you, and I'll put the link down below straight after this if you like. But I noticed they were about $49 on special at the moment from Amazon. So that's the one that I do recommend to use. Now, I'm not using all my card slots with that. So that's in the faster card slot. Remember, that's a UHS-2. So the thing is that in my other slot, the slower card, I'm just using these. So I'm just using the SanDisk Extreme 128 3s. Now, I'm only shooting on these as a backup to that second card. Now, when I'm doing photography, I'm shooting with this RAW on the fast card, and I'm shooting JPEG on the slower card. Now, I nearly always nail my exposure, so it's not a problem. They're very rarely do I really underexpose now. I'm usually, for weddings particularly, I'm usually getting it fairly close. So it doesn't matter that I'm shooting JPEG because it's always going to be good enough to use. In fact, I'm often using the JPEG unless there's a problem with the file or I really want to edit it, and then I can go to the RAW. The JPEGs are very good in these new, the a7 II and the a7 III and the A9 and the a7R 3 are very good in the JPEGs. So that's the way I'm working. With the filter that I'm using on this one, I'm just using a Hoya on this one, I think this one is. Yeah, this is a Hoya. Let me see if it'll focus. I'm just using the Hoya variable on this one. It's very, very nice. And I've found that it doesn't really, I haven't had to correct for cast with this, so it's been really good. So if you're using that, it's fantastic. Now you've said there what SD card, so I've explained that. That's the filter that I'm using, the Hoya, which is variable. And the gimbal, if you're going to buy a gimbal, I would get the Moza Air Cross. I'm just actually, for the moment, just using the Moza Air, but there's a massive difference in weight. I'll grab it so I can show you. So if you're looking at the difference between these two, the Moza Air is a substantially bigger gimbal. This one is way lighter. Now, it depends on what you want to do. I know I spoke to I had Ben come yesterday. He was bringing in some images for me from a wedding he did with me recently. But I mentioned to him that if I'm doing Fusion, I would always like to have this, because the way that I work is basically you can picture the camera on this, but I'm walking down the aisle or whatever, and I'm holding both cameras like this as I'm walking down. Now I'm going to do that tomorrow with the Air. So I'm going to try it tomorrow with the heavier Air to see how I go. But that's normally how I'll work. But if I was only doing straight video, let me just put that away. And I've got another gimbal over here too, which is the smaller one. That one is the Crane, I think, the Crane M. I'm a bit of a gimbal junkie. I've got about 8 of them, I think. If I was only doing straight video, I would probably buy this. Well, I've got to try the Rowan, the S version. I should see if I can get a copy of that to try that. But there's a couple of features I love on this, is the fact that you can lock this here, and when you do that, that gets locked. So the camera doesn't move. So that's fantastic. And the other thing I love about it too is this quick release that you have built into this, so that when you slide them in, once you've got this actually balanced, I don't need to rebalance it again. It's already balanced. So I can quickly take this off and on, and it won't move. Like, I mean, how fantastic is that? So the actual plate underneath here is locked. So you just get that balanced, and then that locks it in. You just undo that, and then basically all you do is you can then clip this out and take it out. So then I can use that for other shots on tripods or whatever I want to do, and then quickly mount it again on there, and and it's locked. And I love that feature of that being locked. I also love that the controls can be changed through here. I'll put this back on and I'll just show you again. I'm not going to want to give this back on Monday. Let me just see if I can turn it on. Now, one of the fantastic things about this is that the power, like how quick this works, is if I turn this, you can actually change the performance just by spinning this wheel. And that's fantastic. Like, I love that. I just so wish, and I'm hoping that when Moza bring out another Aircross, that they put all these controls on there. I love also the fact that that trigger here, if I press that, it will stay in that position. And then the second you take it off, it then starts to, work again. But it holds it in that position. I really like it. Like, it's really smooth. Let me just see if I can turn it back. You've got your inception mode, which if I double click there, it will go into inception mode. Oh, I think I've turned it off. Yeah, I have. I've turned it off. Doesn't matter. It'll go inception mode, which will turn it straight up. I mean, it's just got some great features. I really do like it. It self-calibrates as well. It's super good. It really is nice. I really like it. Like, I'll just see if I can get that inception mode to work. I'll just turn it back on. See if it'll go. There you go. Alright, so then you can sort of point it up and spin it around. I know the other gimbals have that too, but then you can also go like that as well, and do it that way and spin it like that. But I really like it. Like, it really is a nice gimbal. So I'm looking forward to using this tomorrow. I'll just put it down so I don't drop it. So I'm going to be using that tomorrow. I am sort of tempted to buy one, because I wouldn't mind to have one. If I was just doing video, I'd buy that straight away. But you can't get them until next month, apparently. Where were we up to? So I hope that answers that question, Pav. Dave says, I'd struggle, I don't have enough gear. Harry says, hello, I just got my a7 III yesterday. Can somebody help me how to turn the IBIS off inside menu? Oh, I haven't got my camera here. Yeah, you can do it through the menus itself. It's just stabilization you actually have to just turn off. The part-time photographer says, what stabilizer that isn't a gimbal? What is a stabilizer that isn't a gimbal? Oh, you're talking about if you have your actual stabilizers itself, glide cams. Yeah, and someone mentioned that before. I used to have a glide cam. I hated using it though. I sold the glide cam that I had. Where are we? Let's jump back down. Not sure what that means. It's in another language. Stephen says, any news regarding the Tamron 70-200? I think we may get that next year sometime, Stephen. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I don't know, though. I certainly haven't been told. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's sometime next year. Peter says, the a7000 will be... Oh, better bring this back up. Peter says, the a7000 will be a crop sensor. i.e. no comparison between the cam and the a7 series. With the a7 III and the a9, wait for the a7S III. It will cut together much better. You're saying so that it'll be a better fit with the a7 III and the a9. The crop won't cut it. Part-time photographer said, David, is there a video you can recommend on why shooting in Super 35 is better? If you check a lot of videos, I mean, I haven't done one, but I've checked myself. There's a penalty in noise. And I think if you check Max Urav's early videos and things like that, that'll be mentioned there as well. There is a penalty in noise if you're shooting video on the a7 III, the a7R3 as well. If you're shooting in Super 35, you will get better ISO performance than if you're shooting in full frame. The A9 doesn't have that problem. It's the only camera that doesn't have that problem. And I think there's also, with the a7 III, the rolling shutter is far worse in full frame than it is in the Super 35mm mode. That's another thing that's a problem with it, whereas the A9 doesn't matter. Greetings, Barry. Oreo said, I used the a7R3 for the restaurant shoots today, and man, that pixel shift feature gives such amazing premium details. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying if you're dealing with architecture, or you're dealing with landscapes, the a7R3 having that pixel shift is amazing. I just don't do that type of work, but if you need that type of work, it certainly is the only camera that you can do that on. Creative Film says, the a7 III has better image quality in full frame over crop mode. You are confused. No, but not in video, it doesn't, Creative Films. I'm talking about video, not stills. If you're dealing with stills, yes. If you're dealing with video, no, it doesn't. What else have we got? Jet says, yeah, no IBIS on the XT3, exactly. Yeah, that's a real problem. Buzz says, hi, David, can you recommend a variable ND with end stops for the Tamron? No, I only have that one that I showed you, which is the Hoya. I haven't got any with end stops. I've never used one, so I can't recommend one. Someone else might be able to in here. Hello from Maria Islands. Peter said, I just don't understand the comparison between crop and full frame. There is always going to be a difference. The a7000 can never look like full frame. Yeah, and I agree. Sorry, poor Wi-Fi. Yeah, is it playing up? Is it a bit? I hope your genocide dinner was very delicious. I'm not sure what that means. The part-time photographer always is. Peter says, if you want an animal that barks, don't buy a cat. G'day from Australia. Ricky says, hi David, I'm still waiting for the a7S III before I decide to get the Blackmagic Pocket or the Lumix S1. Pavcore says, part-time photographer, something like a Gorilla Pod, just like a monopod or a tripod. I'm starting out, mainly want to do the video. The Panda says, I've been out shooting with one card slot for a long time. Julian says, okay, thanks. Julian says, why people complain about Sony menus? They are not that bad. I come from Canon, and yes, they are simple, but Sony is not that bad. It's not. And I've said all along, the people that whinge about the Sony menus have come from Canon. If you'd only shot Sony and then you try and go to Canon, you get totally confused. I haven't really used Canon. The time that I used the 5D Mark IV to do that comparison with the A9, I struggle with the Canon menus because I didn't know them, and that's the problem with that. What else have we got? The G4 G Master looks awesome. Yes, I'll probably get that lens, Julian. The Panda says, because people don't want to work and use the menu system like it should be used. Like I said, I very rarely use the menu system. I don't really have to. With these cameras, oh, it's down there. With those cameras, I use the quick menu most of the time, you know, and you just don't need to. Once you set out your quick keys and everything else, I very rarely go in there. Bond says, I'm getting super impatient for the Sony a7S III, so am I. Organic Farmer says, if you plug in an external monitor on the a7 III via HDMI, do you still have to use the camera's LCD screen? Do you have to use it, you're saying? Well, it shows up until you press record. If you press record on the a7 III, the screen goes blank. I don't think it does on the A9. I'd have to do it again to check. But yeah, it does go blank if you use HDMI once you press record. Panda says, I'll be making a video about my copyrighted problems soon. Peter says, oh, that's nothing. The menus are not that bad, Peter's saying. Jonas said, how's it going? Do you shoot still and video at the same time? Yes, I do. I'm often shooting with the one camera too, and I'll just press record. Or if I'm holding the gimbal and the stills, yes, I do both at the same time. Is it my end, or did the signal just go kaput? Anybody got $49 for me? The Panda's saying. Yep, fixed. Yep. Thanks. The Panda says, yes, I'm using SanDisk Extreme. Creative Film says Crane Plus is awesome as well. Yep. I mean, all gimbals are really pretty good now. The Panda says Lex is using. The Panda says Susie has a Sony t-shirt. I want a divorce. Iconic that the Moza Air is heavier. Yeah, the Air it's pretty heavy. Hero says, I'm waiting on 3 card slot cameras, then I can be fully comfortable. Creative Film says, I hope the future of gimbals do not continue to be huge like the trend is going. I noticed, though, the other day, I watched, who's the guy that does all the gimbal reviews all the time? I think he lives in Hong Kong. And he was showing the Wemo. Let me just bring up YouTube, because I'm just seeing, I'll see if I can find it for you. It wasn't very good footage, though. Let me go back to my history, because I'll show you which one it was. I'll show you. If you go and have a look at this, Brandon Lee does some great reviews on gimbals. He basically reviews every gimbal that's sent out there. I think every gimbal manufacturer that comes out sends him one of the gimbals. And he'd actually tried this Ewan Weebill test yesterday, and I wasn't that happy with the footage. Originally I thought, oh, I wouldn't mind to try and get one, but after looking at that footage yesterday, I don't think I will. I think I'll stick with the Moza Air Cross, because it looked very jumpy in certain spots. Later on, have a look at that video and just tell me what you think down below. But I didn't like it at all, and he did keep mentioning that the motors were very small on it, and it was having issues that I haven't particularly seen with the Moza Air Cross or even the Zhiyun Crane M. But that one, I didn't really like the look of that at all. I mean, it looked smooth when he was doing some things, but it was glitching. And when he was doing the running tests and things like that, it was all over the place. Like, it was really quite unstable. But anyway, I didn't like the look of it at all. Gas is real with David. I love it. It is, yeah, you're right, Creative Films. The part-time photographer says, I still have not bought the Sony cable for the Rowan S. Yeah, it's pretty bad not to get those cables with it. It didn't come with Sony support when they said it did when I pre-ordered it. The Panda says, I want one so bad. Gerald says, late, but here now. G'day, Gerald. Part-time photographer says, does it support the shutter? Which one? I couldn't get the... it came with the cable, that Moza Air. It works for charging the battery, but I couldn't get the shutter to work. Now, I'm not sure whether it's because of the firmware in that. This is a pre-release version, so I don't know whether it will work. But I know inside it, and if you look at the previous video that I showed about that gimbal, you can choose Sony as the camera. So I think it will work because it definitely works in the Moza Aircross. So if, I'm pretty sure once the full firmware and the full thing is released, it will work. I couldn't get the shutter to work though on the Moza Air. It would charge the battery, but it wouldn't record. But then I couldn't even add it to my iPhone because the iPhone app doesn't support that gimbal yet because it hasn't been updated to support that gimbal yet. So I'd have to let you know. It does come with the cable, and it does show up as Sony being a camera that it can activate it, but it didn't work, and I don't know whether that's the firmware or what, so I can't say. So at the moment, the part-time photographer, the Moza Air, I couldn't control the camera at all. That's one thing I never mentioned in the review because I couldn't control it. But that, like I said, this is a pre-release version. Tim said the Weebill Lab gimbal looks really interesting. Yeah, but not after looking at that review, it doesn't, Tim. Hero says, yeah, whatever they come out with is going to be compete with the Fuji X-T3. It's raining out there again. Oops. We'll have to move on to the next story in a minute. Brandon Lee reviewed the gimbal. Heavy, that's, yeah, that one he's talking about. Not as heavy as a Rowan S. Yeah, I don't think it is quite as heavy as a Rowan S. He said they were similar in weight. For that price, they could use carbon fibre. The part-time photographer says, I don't care about the weight after lugging the Rowan S around. I just want to be able to change the controls as I need to. Yeah, and I couldn't get that to work. Like I said, I couldn't get it to record. I tried for ages. But like I said, that's a pre-release version. I'd have to wait and try the fully released one to see if that works. Part-time photographer said, I read the specs on the Rowan S and they were a lie. Organic Farmer says, DJI finally came out with the Rowan S accessories today. I'd like to try that gimbal though, just to see how it compares to that one. Part-time photographer says, I mainly shoot solo on location. Pav said, thank you, David, for the amazing gimbal demonstration. That's a fabulous gimbal collection. Cheers, David. My water also have a multi-taste to it. Does Sony usually give deals after Christmas or the New Year? They may, but I'm not sure. You just never know. That's the problem. Jim saying hello. Part-time photographer says, hi, greetings from California. Kai Brandon, yeah, that's Brandon, did that review. I didn't even know DJI released a cable, purchasing it now. What do you think about the Sony A9R? I don't think we're going to see that any A9 release until 2020. That's about it. Slow motion is best on the A7 III. Julio saying, good night, guys, got to catch some sleep. Tim says, there is a Crane 3 Lab with bigger motors compared to the Weebill. Is a good idea to buy the a6000 this Black Friday? Well, the a6000 is still a good camera if that's basically all the money that you can afford. Obviously, if you can afford to, you get a much better camera in the a6500. Stacey said, yes, my Aircross will activate the shutter. Yeah, and I've used that, Stacey, with the Aircross. So I'm sure that the Air will work once you get the full release version because it works fantastic with the Aircross. What else have we got? Actually, that's a good point, Stacey, because I didn't do that, and that's probably why it didn't work. I forgot about that. Yeah, you do. You have to, because I'm using back button focus and I've disengaged the shutter button, it won't work. And that, thank you for telling me that, because I might change that for tomorrow. Yes, it will, probably. You've got to deactivate or activate your shutter button on the camera again. Because on the, I won't get it, it's on the gimbal. Because I've deactivated that because I use back button focus, it won't focus. So that's probably why it didn't work. Thank you for that, Stacey. I forgot all about that. All right, so I've got a thumbs down already, I noticed up there. So thank you, whoever gave me the thumbs down. All right, let's go to the next story. That was a big discussion on that. Woo. All right, so next story is this. We've got, and I did talk about this the other day, but I wasn't doing it with you guys through the live, so the Saturday. So I just wanted to bring this up again, that there is an SR4 that Sony is basically saying, or Sony Alpha rumors are saying that the new A7S will have a stacked sensor, but they're actually saying that it's going to be a different sensor than what the A9 is. So it's not going to be the same one. They're actually saying here that the development of the A7S has to be postponed due to heat issues. So they're saying there's a heat issue, and that's caused the postponement so far. It will have a stacked sensor, but it's going to be different to the A9. And the A7S will be sold in early 2019. And they're also saying that we'll have 4K 60p and a 5.6 million dot EVF. So basically, they're still the same specs that everyone has been saying all along. But it's interesting, and it does make sense that what they're saying now is that it will have a stacked sensor, and that makes sense if you're dealing with rolling shutter. So it does make sense now that they're saying it's not going to have the same sensor like what the previous A7S has, or the A7 III has. So obviously by putting in a stacked sensor like that, it'll be much faster, and therefore it will eliminate rolling shutter, or it'll be very little rolling shutter like the A9 has. So that's a great thing. And looking at it there, it's too, they're saying it's a different sensor, so it's probably going to be even more advanced than what the A9 is, which may make the rolling shutter even better. So that's a really interesting thing there as well. There's still no mention about megapixels. I'm hoping it is around about 24, because really, if you're dealing with low light, even what the A7S, what the A7 III gives you is incredible, and it's more than enough for what I would ever shoot. I'd be more interested in giving a little bit, yes, perhaps a little bit better ISO, but if they can give you that 6K downsampling, the same thing what the A7 III has and the A9 has, with that stacked sensor, with that amazing 5.6 million dot EVF, with obviously we need a better bit depth in that, you know, say something up to 400 megabits per second or something like that, that can compare with, say, the GH5 in that regard, would also be fantastic as well, because I know a lot of videographers want that better bit depth to edit. Now, I'm not interested in that, because for me, the way that I'm shooting, I don't need these massive megapixels or bit depths, because the file sizes just becomes unmanageable. I'm quite happy with shooting as I do, and I'm quite comfortable with the gradients and things like that that you get in the sky and stuff like that. But if you are a full-on videographer, I can certainly understand why you would want much better bit depth, because you'll get less of that problem with gradients in the sky and things like that. For the way I'm shooting, which is more fusion sort of orientated type stuff, I'm quite comfortable with the bit depths that are already there. But it would be nice to say have, you know, say a 200 megabit and then a 400 megabit bit depths, you know, and obviously if we can get 422 out, 10 bit, I don't think we'll get that internal, but we may get it so it's external. You never know, they might give 10-bit 422 external on the A7000, and they might give you 422 10-bit internal in the A7S III. That could be one thing that we have different in the A7S III that makes it way different than the other cameras that are available as well. So that could be another interesting thing. But it looks like at this stage we'll probably get the A7S III around about NAB, you know, in that first quarter for next year. What's that, about March, I think, isn't it? So I don't think we're going to see it before then, unfortunately. Like I said to you, I am chasing another video camera. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. I don't think we'll see an articulating screen. I just don't think we're going to see that from Sony for a while. I mean, please, Sony, make that wrong, but I don't think we're going to see it. But we're just going to have to mod it like Aaron J. Anderson's just done, which he's going to share a video about that shortly. So, you know, we're just going to have to wait on that regards. We could be lucky and they might give us an internal ND. That would be just incredible. If they can give us an internal ND like what, you know, this has, the RX100 Mark V, the ND on this is fantastic, and it does make it so much easier if you're shooting video. So if they could give us something like an internal ND, but not many people are really mentioning that anymore, so I don't think we're going to get that. But anyway, let's open up the chat anyway to that. So we'll talk about, you know, what the a7S III. So let me go down to where we're on the next story. We haven't got many people talking about that yet. Hi David, just got the Sony a6-300. What's the best lens for astrophotography? Well, you need something fairly wide. Like you could use the lens I'm using now, which is the Sony 24 1.8. That would be a fantastic lens. Some others that have the Samyang lenses or the Sigma lenses might also be able to say what they'd recommend too, because someone says take a look at the Sigma 16 1.4 also would be a great lens. And because you're manually focusing as well, it's not going to be an issue. But I believe the Sigma focus is pretty good anyway. I've heard a lot of good reports about the 16 1.4. Part-time photographer says the heat strikes again. Now that was an interesting thing that's there. I'm not sure that that's true because, well, it might be, and that could be the reason why they were holding it back. And that might be also another reason why the sensor has been completely redesigned so it eliminates heat. It does worry me if they're saying that they held that back due to heat issues. I'm hoping that's not true, because if the camera overheats doing 4K 60, and you only get a few minutes out of it, you know, everyone's going to go crazy about slamming it again. You know what it's going to be like. We're going to have heat gate again. So I'm hoping that's not the case. It might be why they've held it back. I believe the real reason why they held it back was to wait and see what Canon release in their next version, and also what Panasonic release. Remember, the full specs of those cameras haven't really been announced yet. So I still think they're waiting to see what happens in that regard before they announce the a7S III. Roy says, I recommend the 12mm Samyang lens for astrophotography. Use it and it's very good. Thank you guys for the recommendations. Or a liquid cooled cam with a radiator. I love that. Jim said, yes, he's talking to Santiago, said the a6-300 and the a6-500 also, I agree. Pav said, David, I would love to make the most of Black Friday. Which lens would complement my Sony 85 1.8 the most for video mainly? I'm thinking of getting the Sigma 24 1.4 or the Sony Zeiss 16-35 f4. Well, I haven't got, if you're talking about video, Pav, I wouldn't get the Sigma. I'd get the 16-35. I've got that lens and I'll be using that tomorrow. It's great for video. It's very fast focusing. The Sigma lenses are great if you're dealing with stills. They're not that good if you're dealing in videography for tracking subjects. So I wouldn't recommend the Sigma if you're dealing with that. You're better off to buy the 24 G Master. If you can't afford that G Master, I would get the 16-35 f4 because I love that lens and I think it's fantastic and I use that lens all the time. Gerald said, do you think the a7S III with a stacked sensor will have 20 frames per second for stills to match the A9? No, I don't, Gerald. I don't think they'll give you the 20 frames per second on that camera. It will be a video-centric camera. I would be very, very surprised if they give that at all. I don't think that we're going to see that. They'll concentrate that sensor totally towards the video side of things. That's what I believe anyway. Talia said, David, do you think they will come out with a new APS-C 16-35, 2470 and 70-200? No, I don't think they will for APS-C. I think we'll get some lenses, but I don't think there'll be that many, unfortunately. But like I said, I'm not interested in buying APS-C lenses at all anyway. I'm just going to buy full frame lenses from now on. Even if I get the Sony a7000 that comes out, I'll still be using the full frame glass. I've already got the 18-105, I've got the 24-1.8, and I've got the 10-18. I'm happy with that. Anything else, I'll buy full frame glass and adapt it onto the a7000. That way I can use them on both. Gerald said, I agree that Sony is waiting to see what competitors release so they won't be surpassed when they release their next camera. I would wait if I was Sony, even as much as we want it sooner. Yeah, and that's the thing. Remember, I've said to you, and people will always say hardware's locked in from ages ago. Yes, I know that, but you can add an awful lot to these cameras by firmware. You would be amazed at what they can add in firmware. Just check what some of the firmware updates have been to Panasonic cameras, the GH5 for instance, where they've added much better bit depth and all these things, better focusing and stuff like that. Look at what they've added in Fuji, how they've improved features and major features in firmware. So you'd be surprised how much they could actually add. Santiago says, I don't have the money. Yeah, well, if you haven't got the money, you would still, the a6000 is still a good camera, Santiago. You'll still get beautiful images from that camera. All right, so let's go on to the next story. Oh. How long have we been? God, we've already been going an hour and 20 minutes, and we've only got through 2 stories. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Oh, I love it. All right, so next story. I just wanted to talk to you about this. I know the Canon haters. Let me just, before I do this, please, come here. This is like this is like Ken. If you're a Canon shooter, please stop watching now, please, because I don't want you to comment down below and going berserk. Please switch off. Now, before I start, I'm just going to have a drink of my coffee. I should have went Fuji. So if you can, please don't listen to this next story. Okay. Officially, the DP Review have done their first full-on test of the EOS-R, and they're saying that it lags behind the competition considerably, which is not good. I mean, when you think that the time that they've had to develop this camera, and they're saying that it lags behind, I'll put this link down below so you can have a read of it. But basically, this Richard Butler has written about it, and he's saying that it isn't a Canon-like experience. So they're saying that basically it's not like using a normal Canon in its user sort of experience. They're saying the way the sensor and autofocus can be both extremely good, but in other situations will confound the autofocus. They're saying it's very unreliable, in other words. The autofocus or highlight changes, the dynamic range and video shortcomings. So the dynamic range is not good compared to the competition, and the video shortcomings, like the horrible 1.8 crop, and also the focus, if you're talking about in video as well, like it doesn't have focus if you're dealing with 120 when you're slowing down. So that's a really bad write-up that he's actually given it. Barney has basically said there that the form factor, good sensor and solid stills for photography, but he said, I still don't enjoy shooting with it. He appreciates Canon trying to do something different with the ergonomics, but it's very unusual for Canon that it's not Canon-like again. So that's the second writer that's actually said that. And basically they're saying down here, and this is the interesting thing, because they're actually saying down here that the A7S III sets a high bar at a similar price point to the EOS-R. Compared to the Canon, the Sony has faster burst rates, a more capable autofocus system, dual memory cards, better battery life, and full width and very detailed 4K video. And it comes in an appreciably smaller package. It does then say, obviously, that the EOS-R, that some people may prefer the EOS-R larger grip. It has an articulating screen, and the user interface is easier than Sony. But they're saying there, we think the a7 III is a better camera for most users. Now, this is really interesting, because you think about it, how long has the A7 III been out now? A while. It's probably been out nearly, I don't know, is it nearly 12 months? But it's been out a long time. And they haven't overtaken the A7 III at all. You look at the features that camera's missing, and I know I keep discussing this, but I've discussed this, and every time I do, you get the Canon fanboys that come on and they start putting these ridiculous comments in the, you know, below. And I'm sure I'm going to get them again, even though I did say Canon users stop looking. But honestly, the Canon, and we say a word in Australia, fair dinkum, that Canon need to be fair dinkum with what they're doing with their users. At least the EOS, at least the Nikon camera really is good all around. There's not much wrong with that camera apart from the dual card slots. I was talking to Ben yesterday. Ben is a Nikon shooter, and he said he may have wanted to buy that camera apart from it doesn't have the dual card slots. Now, he's a wedding photographer like I am, so he can't buy it. So that's one problem with that, but at least it has the IBIS in that camera. The sensor seems to be really good. The dynamic range is very good on the Nikon. So there's things like that on that camera that are outstanding. It's just let down really by the dual card slots on the Nikon side. But you look at the Canon, and honestly, the thing is with the Canon, one card slot, which the Nikon has, yes, I understand that. So, but at least the Nikon has XQD. I think it's XQD, isn't it? The Canon is just using your normal cards. So that's an issue in itself. The other problem is there's no IBIS on that camera. The other problem is the dynamic range it hasn't really been improved at all since the 5D Mark IV, and that was way behind Sony's already. So the dynamic range is no good compared to the Sony cameras. The video, the 1.8 crop, I mean, that is ridiculous. Putting a 1.8 crop on that camera is completely crippled it as far as I'm concerned. There's no way I'd want to be shooting a full frame camera or paying for a full frame camera and then having to shoot at 1.8 crop on that camera. No autofocus if you're dealing with slow motion at 120. Again, they're just crippling for the sake of crippling their cameras to protect their other cameras. And the reviews are starting to just come out now. I mean, I know, look, the Canon fanboys are going to be going, and yeah, I understand that they love Canon, but you've basically got to say the truth, guys, and just say that Canon dropped the ball when they released this camera and it's crippled. And there's no way I would be buying that camera the way it is. The only thing really that it's got going for it really is it takes decent stills. Like I said, the dynamic range isn't as good as Sony's. It does take decent stills, and it has an articulating screen. That's really all it's got going for it. The other thing is the lenses are amazing, and I really wish Sony had some of those lenses. The lenses are amazing, and I'm just hoping that the next version that comes out, that Canon doesn't hold back like they have, and they release a camera that justifies the lenses that have been announced. Because at the moment, the lenses are just ridiculous when you put them onto that body. It's just crazy. So let's open that up to chat. I'm just curious to know what you guys think about that as well. MJ says, Santiago Best Buy has the a6000 with 2 lenses for $5.99. Great, thank you for sharing that, MJ. Jim says, thumbs up, please, or thumbs down if angry. I knew I've got an extra thumbs down. It's gone down to 2. It would have been a Canon user. I'll get a few. You know, it's just crazy. I noticed yesterday, I'm thinking that video, what was that? I'm going to tell you because I just crack up. I really do crack up that when we look at these, let me just go to YouTube because it's just so funny. You just think, what's wrong with the haters? They really do crack me up. Where are we? Let me just bring those up and I'll show you the ones I'm talking about. Because it's actually hilarious. Because if you look here, does it tell me thumbs down? Oh, no, it doesn't. Oh, bummer. I thought it did. I can tell you on my phone, though, because I'll tell you on the phone. Let me open this up. Because it just makes me laugh. You think, what is wrong with people? Now, the interesting thing is, whenever I mention anything bad, whenever I do anything about Sony, for instance, it's really interesting because they get 2 thumbs down. Well, I've already got 2 thumbs down on this one, which cracks me up. The Moza Air review that I did yesterday, and I can't understand how anyone, if you watch that video, I can't understand anyway how anyone could say give it a thumbs down unless... I do now believe, as I've got more popular though, no matter what I post, I'm going to get thumbs down because I get thumbs down the second I've posted something and they can't have even watched it. The wedding photography behind the scenes, that one, which you'd think if you watched it, people would be thankful that I'm just giving information out for free. And I don't mention Sony in there or whatever. That's had 3 thumbs down. The Sony A9 firmware got 5. What gear do you need to use wedding photography? I've got 6 thumb downs on that one. Oh, it just cracks me up. But they don't realise, and what makes me laugh is that they don't realise, and this is part I love, that they're still giving you a hit. So these people that are giving you a thumbs down, they're still watching the video, or it's still gets added to your analytics, and it helps you in the end anyway, and it cracks me up. It really does. It makes me laugh. It's just such a crack up. So let's keep going. Oh, next story. So thanks anyway, Jim, for saying thumbs up, please. Peter says, firmware can help heaps if they use it. Yes, it can, and I'm hoping they bring out some great firmware. Let's just open it up to Q&A, by the way, too now. So let me just put up there Q&A. All right, so we'll open it up to Q&A at the same time because that was the last story. But I'm going to keep reading through this as we go over. All right, so let me turn that off so we can keep going. Mario saying hello, everyone. Hercules saying hello. Hercules, it's a shame that Canon and Nikon lost their place. Panasonic and Sony will lead the market in coming years. Pav said, thanks a million, David. Really appreciate your opinion. No worries, mate. Camera Conspiracies, g'day. How are you? Watched the last couple of videos. I loved them. Canon somehow managed to ruin dual pixel autofocus. I know, what have they done there that... I watched that one where you were talking about that, mate, and yeah, I agree with you. There's something happened with their with their autofocus compared to how it's worked on other cameras, and I don't know why they would do that. It is a bit weird. Check out Camera Conspiracy's latest couple of videos. There's a couple of crack-ups in there. I've put a couple of comments on them. Bad says, what focus mode you use with the A9 on the gimbal? Usually center. I like to be in a little bit of control. Now, I'll tell you why I do that, because when I'm running and gunning with the gimbal, if you set it on wide area, you have got the potential to grab someone that's on the sides. Like, for instance, if the bride is walking down the aisle, you've got a potential if someone's turning around that it will grab their face and lose focus. So I keep it on center focus and keep the subject in the middle that I'm trying to focus on. And I've found that that's the best way that I've worked with focus. If I'm only dealing with, say, the bride, and, you know, like I just wanted to sort of rotate around her or whatever, I can set it on wide area and have face detect on. Or in general, if it's only the bride and groom, I can do the same thing. And I'll keep it on wide area then with face detect on. If I want to be 100% sure that I'm getting things in focus, I'll use that center focus and just keep the subject in the middle. If, for instance, I wanted to show the bride walking, say, down the beach or whatever, and I wanted her in the right-hand corner, I'll use zone in the focus and have the sort of right in the zone coming down. So I do change the focus modes all the time, but often I'm using center focus for that deliberate reason of making sure it doesn't go off to the side. MJ says, am I the only one that prefers Sony? I don't mind the Sony interface at all, MJ. I'm with you. Jim says, if anyone is driving a Yogo, a Canon EOS-R is a good deal. Phonomix says, I'm back. I know he's put a couple of videos up that you might want to check of the his unboxing and stuff like that of his Nikon. So he's got videos now coming up with showing his new Nikon that he's bought. He's got the Z6. Ali says, Canon cripple mirrorless to protect their digital SLRs. Yeah, and that's the problem. And I do think that's bad and sad that they've done that. Nikon have also done that in a way by forcing you to buy the D850 if you want dual card slots, and that's a real shame. Like I said, that I know Photomix bought the Z6. It's a pity that didn't have the dual card slots, because it really would have had everything that you needed. And I'm sure the next version will, but you know, that might be 2 to 3 years away. Apart from that, the Nikon, like I said, is a much better camera than the Canon, that's for sure. Ali said, Canon cripple... Oh, I've read that one. Jim said, Photomix, yo. Santiago, it's cool, 16 to 50, 55 to 210. For $5.98. Yeah, that's good prices, isn't it? But for you, these are better than the classic 50, 1.8, and batteries, for example, is it worth it? Thank you all. If you've got the money, I'd buy, Santiago, if you've got the money, I'd get prime lenses. I wouldn't be getting the kit lenses. I'd buy a cheap prime to start out with, like the 50 1.8 or something like that. You could get the Sigma 16 as well, also is really nice. Gary says, I think the Canon should not cost more than $1,800. Yeah, even that much, I don't know. Jim said, Photomix, enjoyed your video with Olivia. Refilm. Yeah, Photomix just put a video up showing how he compares film up with digital. So check that out. Gerald says, the EOS-R, after initial wave of sales, is not selling here. According to major Dallas camera store, people, especially new buyers, still prefer the Sony's better performance. Photomix says, thanks, Jim. I'm working on some comparisons with the a7 III and the Z6 this weekend. Should be interesting. Haas says, I would think a flip screen might be added to the S3. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to do that. I hope they do, Haas, but I'm not confident that's going to happen. What else have we got? Photomix just having a conversation about what he's going to review. Oreo said, the story of Canon and Nikon Sony reminds me of the last period Beatles. John and Paul were so busy competing against each other that they didn't notice that George became the better composer. Laugh out loud, Oreo. So do we have any last questions? Like I said, I've got a wedding tomorrow, so I won't be posting tomorrow. I might post something up on Sunday. Obviously, I'll be back to the wedding series on Monday. I'll probably post that. I've still got a couple of videos of Kiara studio shoot that I just haven't had the time to get back onto. So I'll be posting that when I get to that as well. So I've got some exciting things coming up in the coming days. Obviously, any questions from today, leave those down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Like I said, I might not be able to answer tomorrow because I'll be working tomorrow all day. But stay tuned for the Fusion video that I'll be doing tomorrow. I'm sure that's going to look amazing. I will be showing some footage that I've got from the Moza Air though. That'll be coming up shortly because I'll be showing how that went at the wedding tomorrow. So I will be showing some samples of that from behind the scenes to show you how that went on the day as well. And that's about all, guys, unless there's any last minute questions. Well, we've been going on an hour and 36, so we've been going quite a while. Jim said, all thumbs up unless angry, then thumbs down. I've still only got 2 thumbs down. I'm sure they were for the Canon users. Gerald said, will you wait out the a7000 or wait for the a7S III? Well, Gerald, what I will do, if the a7000 meets all my needs, I probably will buy it because I still think we're going to be waiting 3 months or 4 months for the a7S III to come out. So I probably will buy the a7000 if it does meet. Now, the needs I have are obviously 4K 60p, and I'd like dual card slots. I'd love a fold-out screen if that's possible for them to give us that, but I don't know whether we'll get it. If I don't get all those features, I'm going to wait for the a7S III. I may still buy the a7S III anyway if I get the a7000. It just depends. But, you know, if the a7000 has everything I need, I might buy it. Has says, good luck for the wedding, David. We'll wait for the behind the scenes. Yes, I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that's about it. All right, guys, that'll be all for now. So I'll see you all in the next video. Obviously, leave any questions down below. I'm going to go and get ready for tomorrow's video. I've still got to pack. Now, stay tuned, because in a few minutes, I'll get my iPhone up running, and I'll just go live, and I'll show you what I've got in my bag for Fusion. So I'll show you everything I'm taking. So if you do want to hang around, it might take me 5 minutes to get that up and running. So stay tuned, and I will show you my what I've got in the packs that I'm taking tomorrow. So hang on. Bye for now.